Spooky the Bio Guy here. Today we're going to talk about my favorite animal, and that's the snakes. Snakes are a group of animals, vertebrates, which include the fish, mammals, amphibians, reptiles. We have a whole bunch of different snakes here in the room. Now, one of the things that makes a reptile is their skin. Their bodies grow faster than their skin, so they have to periodically shed their skin. Now, this is the top scales from the first snake we're going to look at, and that is the boa constrictor. Also, we have two kinds, big groups of snakes. We have the venomous snakes and we have the constrictors. Now, certainly we can't have any venomous snakes here in C250, so we have all the constrictors. The difference is the constrictors do just what the word says. They squeeze. They literally have to grab a hold of their prey, and they got to squeeze them basically until they stop breathing, and then they swallow them whole. The other kind are the poisonous, the venomous snakes. Now, these are the ones that would have the fangs. Certainly they would have the fangs, so they can inject the venom. They also have these little structures in the fronts of their face called pits, and the pits can sense heat, because when a poisonous snake strikes its prey, it does not hold on to it. It can't risk breaking a fang, this, that, and everything. So it literally injects the venom, and the animal runs away, and they use these pits, these heat sensors. It's kind of like you see in the military, you know, it shows up in shades of orange and red, and they literally go and they find the prey, which can run 10, 20 feet away in total darkness. So we have constrictors here. The first one we're going to look at, we call Pedro. Yeah, I'm going to take Pedro out here. Okay. Now, Pedro is a boa constrictor. Okay. Pedro, well, he's about half grown. The boa constrictors are indigenous to South America. We don't find boa constrictors in this country. You can see Pedro is, you know, he's using his tongue here. He's got his tongue out, and, you know, snakes, they smell with their tongues, and that's what he's doing. You know, I pulled him out of his cage here, and now he's trying to figure out what's going on, where he is, and so he uses that forked tongue, and he actually is smelling. He's figuring out where he is. He's trying to figure out what's going on, and that's what he would use if he were trying to sense if there were a rodent or something walking by his burrow, his hole, a tree that he's in, so on and so forth. So that's Pedro. Now, the next snake we're going to talk about is a little different than the boa. The boa was not indigenous to this country. The next snake we're going to talk about is a corn snake. Now, corn snakes you can find around here out in the wild. This one is a little bit different, and I'll tell you why in a second. But let's get Camo out. Okay. Now, Camo is a corn snake. Now, if you found a corn snake in this area, the corn snake would probably be a rust, a burnt umber, that kind of color, orangish. This is a different phenotype. This one is, it's not an albino, it's a different color phase. They come in different color phases. When you go to reptile shows to buy snakes, usually the more expensive snakes are the ones that have special colors. They've bred them specially that way. This is not the normal color for a corn snake. Like I said, that would be a red or orangish one. But Camo here is a machine, an eating machine. Camo will eat 3, 4, 5 mice at one time. This is why they're beneficial to have snakes in the ecosystem. It's one of the checks and balances when that rodent population gets out of hand. These guys will take it down pretty fast. So if you see a snake out there, and I know a lot of you are afraid of snakes out there, you don't want to hurt them, you don't want to kick them or stomp on them or chop their heads off, because these guys are good. And if you have snakes in your area, in your house, your basement or something, they're there for a reason, and it's probably because you have some kind of food that they want, so you leave them there. Now, the next snake we're going to talk about today is one of my favorites. You know, after years of handling snakes, boas, and pythons, and You know, I used to be into the big 12, 15 footers, and they are exciting, and they still are exciting. But I'm kind of moving into a color phase, and I'm excited about snakes that have very vibrant colors. The next snake here we call two chain, and I'm going to take two chain out here. Now look at the colors on two chain. Two chain is gorgeous. This would be a Honduran milk snake. Okay. Now it's very similar, same family as the milk snakes we have around here. We would have an eastern milk snake, which are copper colored, brown, little kind of diamond shapes on their back. But this is a Honduran milk snake. Now their claim to fame is they look like one of the most poisonous snakes in North America, and that would be a coral snake. These guys are duplicates of the coral snake. There is a little saying that you can say to yourself, repeat, if you're not sure what you're going to pick up. Because if you're not sure it's a coral snake or a Honduran milk snake, you don't want to pick it up. A coral snake is one of the most venomous snakes in this country and will kill you, you know, within 30 seconds to a minute if you get bit pretty bad. Here's the saying. The saying says, red on black. You see the red on the black. So if the red touches black, it's a friend of Jack. If you ever have red on yellow, that will kill a fellow. So if you ever have the red touching the yellow, you don't want to pick that snake up because they look exactly the same. Beautiful snake, just shed. They will shed as many times as you feed them. The more you feed them, the more they'll shed because they're growing faster. But this guy just shed. His colors are very vibrant. And lucky for me, this is red on black. The next snake we have is probably the most common snake around here, if not in the eastern seaboard of the United States. Okay, that would be the garter snake. Now, the most common mistake about this is how people pronounce it. It's garter snake, G-A-R-T. It's like that ribbony thing you put around a girl's leg when she's getting married, a garter. Okay? This is not a gardener snake, it is a garter snake. Very identifiable. You can see it's got the olive drab green with the yellow stripes going down it. Very, very common. These guys are all over the place. I just talked to someone the other day that said they had a number of these in their basement. And that doesn't surprise me because in the wintertime they will burrow down into the ground in any kind of crevice, certainly a basement, and they will congregate. There's been stories of one school in Canada, high school, where they actually had an infestation of about 10,000 of them over the winter. They actually had to let school out for a week, which a lot of you would be happy about, I'm sure, just so they could exterminate these guys. So very, very common. You can see very placid. These guys would eat slugs. They would eat earthworms, things like that. If it's big enough, you know, they might eat rodents. If you ever pick one of these guys up, one thing you might notice with the garter snake is that they can leave a very putrid smell on your hand. One of the defense mechanisms, certainly this guy is not going to, you know, bite you. He doesn't have fangs. He has very, very small teeth. They have a musk gland, and they let that musk out of that gland, and boy, oh boy, you wash your hand 10 times and that stench does not come off. But this little guy here, he's only about a year old. They grow to be about 4, sometimes in excess of 5 feet long. Very, very common, very helpful to your garden, very helpful all around this area. So, you know, this is one guy you want to let go by, and he'll do you a lot of good. The last snake we're going to talk about today is from a group of snake called the pythons. This is Elmo. And Elmo is a ball python. Very, very popular, very, very heavily bred in the snake circles, in the herpetological circles. The pythons are the longest snakes in the world. Okay? They can get in excess of 30 feet long. The reticulated python is one of the biggest, longest, certainly the longest snake in the world. Okay? I always get that question, what's the biggest snake in the world? Well, the longest snake in the world is the reticulated python, but by sheer mass, you can't beat the anaconda for mass. They get in excess of 400 pounds. Now, this is a constrictor. He might be 4.5, 5 feet long. This might get up to 8 feet long. Very, very powerful. They're like spring steel, solid muscle. Certainly, if you had a 25 or 30 foot python in your midst, you'd have to be very careful. Matter of fact, I would say somewhere around the 12 foot to 14 foot, you know, I would be a little concerned about how you handle them, so on and so forth. Certainly, this guy is not any, I don't fear him at all for his size, for sure. You know, what you have to remember is a lot of people are scared of spiders, they're scared of snakes. Imagine what the snake is thinking. You got a 2 foot long snake looking up at you way up there, and you're terrified of the thing. Well, it's more terrified of you than you should be of it. Totally harmless, certainly from a constrictor standpoint. Now, these guys are South American based as well. You can see that pattern that they have on them. Imagine this guy curled up in laying in a bunch of leaves waiting for a prey. I mean, these guys, you wouldn't even see them. The bigger ones, the bigger pythons, the retics, will actually can lay on a path for up to 6 months. Okay, and when they eat that goat, capybara, antelope, whatever it might be, they can last for up to a half a year without eating again. But these guys are pretty cool. I can feel the power of those muscles in him. But again, constrictor, nothing to worry about right now. That's all for today for the constrictors. In a future episode, we're going to crawl inside the den of one of the most poisonous snakes in North America, and we're going to bring it out to show you. You don't want to miss that one. But for today, that's it for the Bio Guy.